Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Heat Wave. 32 teams in 32 days. We are breaking down every single fantasy relevant player on each team. Today, we're focusing on the Dallas Cowboys and ending out the NFC East. I'm your host, the Fantasy Plug, Tim Petropoulos, EIC at BrotoFantasy.com and the Fantasy Football by Broto app. I am joined by the Dynasty Don himself, the Fantasy Encyclopedia and lead writer at Broto, Mr. Matt Ward, and our special guest today, finishing out the NFC East. It is the one, the only, the true value king, and my brother, the director of operations at Broto, Jason Petropoulos. What's up, fellas?
What's up?
Good to be back.
If you are watching this right now, thank you very much for supporting the show. And speaking of the show, you can find it on the Fantasy Football by Broto app, along with every single stat and every single thing you need to become your own expert and dominate fantasy football. Every single stat you hear us use today can be found on the app, where there are fantasy player cards, which is basically a fantasy player profile where it gives you their athleticism scores. And then in the back of the card, it gives you every single stat you need for their projections. Fantasy player grades, usage charts. By the way, fantasy player grades, Broto exclusive. Start sit tool, who to draft tool, player comps, consistency charts, game logs, coaching tendencies, podcasts, articles, rankings, waivers, and the most important stuff, advanced stats, every stat you need, including proven exclusive Broto stats that have given us the edge over the years. True throw value, true target value, true performance value, adjusted air yards, and true matchup rankings. This app is free because of our patrons over at patreon.com/BrotoFantasy. A big thank you. We love you guys so much, for real. Join now to support the show, the app, and join the best community in the world. For as little as $3 a month, you get extras like an extra waiver wire show every week, access to BRoto Leagues, proven DFS cash game optimizers, access to cheat sheets, private team consultations, and access to the greatest community in the world. Not just the fantasy world, but the actual entire universe. That's right. The entire universe. We're better than aliens over at the Discord for Broto. Today, we are jumping into the Cowboys. Let's run it back again for year 3, Mike McCarthy. Let's run it back again with year 4, Kellen Moore. One of the rare combinations where the OC has been there longer than the head coach. Last year, they led the league in points per game. Best scoring offense in the league. Just above league average for pass run ratio, so a little bit more pass heavy, but not that much. And their O-line ranking is 6th, which is great for PFF coming into the season, is 6th, which is great, but it's back. All right, so they lost some guys on the offensive line. One of those guys they lost is La'el Collins, left tackle, who has been a steady force for the Cowboys. Now, they do have a kid taking his place that played well last year in La'el Collins' stead, that they have a lot of trust in, and they also did some drafting. They also lost wide receiver Amari Cooper, which one of the more questionable trades of the year, because they traded him early, got back only like a 5th-round pick, and then wide receivers started getting huge hauls. And the Cowboys really haven't done anything with that cap space. I feel like that cap space was originally for Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory kind of told them to go fuck themselves and went to the Broncos after they,
Facts.
So they haven't done anything with that cap space yet. So now they're down a major wide receiver and nothing really to show for it. Also, they've lost Cedric Wilson, Blake Jarwin, wide receiver and tight end respectively, left guard Connor Williams, and running back Corey Clement. They added James Washington, a wide receiver with some talent out of Pittsburgh. And then finally, their rookies. In the first round, they took Tyler Smith, a tackle, wide receiver Jalen Tolbert, one of the more interesting fantasy rookies in the 3rd round, and tight end Jake Ferguson. Let's start at the quarterback position. Dackity Dak Dak to Dak Dak Dak. He's back. The Dak attack, baby. Dak is one of the more consistent quarterbacks over the past few years. When he's healthy, he's a top 10 fantasy quarterback. He's in an offense where you don't expect that to change much. So, Jason, how are we feeling about Mr. Dak Prescott?
Yes, sir. I feel like Dak Prescott has become boringly above average for a lot of people. Like, he's just penciled in as the quarterback 5, 6, 7, and people just move on. It's like, yep, he's going to finish there. Call it a day. And people doing that aren't wrong. That's who Dak Prescott is. He's going to finish as a top 8 quarterback. He's been a top 8 quarterback the last 3 years. His ADP right now is quarterback 7. He's had 8 or more QB1 finishes in 4 out of his 6 seasons. So he's super consistent. So when you're getting Dak Prescott, you're getting a good player, man. And he's always a pretty decent value at his ADP. There's two concerns to Dak Prescott. One, he hasn't really run the ball over the last 2 years. In 2019, he had 277 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. 2020, that dropped to 93 rushing yards. He had 3 touchdowns, so it was overlooked a little bit that he didn't really run the ball anymore. But then last year, he had 146 yards and 1 touchdown. So you're not hitting 200 rushing yards. You're not hitting at least 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, you're not really a rushing quarterback anymore. So you can't really count on that for points. So that's definitely a slight concern when you look at his game. But there's a chance he runs the ball more because, like you said, Amari Cooper is out of the town now. Michael Gallup said he's not going to be ready for week 1. Rumor has it that Tony Pollard's working out of the slot early in camp. So it's definitely a different look in that Cowboys offense, but super consistent. They were the top scoring offense in the league last year. Put some respect on the guy's name. He's a good pick at his value.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Let's go on to one of the most interesting topics, I think, of the year. I saw something today that it was Michael. Michael is all about Zeke at ADP. He said the fact that Zeke is going so late in ADP is a crime, and I agree. Like, he's going in the 3rd round right now. You can get Zeke in the 3rd round. Like, are you kidding me? This guy was the RB6 last year. Was he the greatest person ever? No, but he got hurt. He played like it, but he was still a very consistent running back that never really gave you a really bad game. Now, did he give you a blow-up game like Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry did? No, he didn't. But he never gave you a real bad game. And Tony Pollard was involved in the offense like crazy last year. So if you're telling me that, like, you're scared that Tony Pollard is going to take his work, I give you these 2 responses. Number 1, Tony Pollard already took a bunch of work, and Zeke was still RB6. Number 2, last year Zeke was hurt. Last year Zeke was not himself in terms of efficiency, and Tony Pollard was a stat darling. We did the True Value Olympics, and Tony Pollard was surprisingly one of the better statistical running backs last year. They still didn't go to him. It was still the Zeke show. So now that Zeke is healthy, why would you lean any less off Zeke? You're paying him all the money. I don't see any way besides injury that Zeke gives this job away to Tony Pollard. I think a 3rd round value is absolutely a steal. You're talking about a guy who's getting drafted like 3 spots ahead of Alvin Kamara, and Alvin Kamara might miss 6 games. So that's what you're talking about here. So take him at ADP is my spiel. Matt, do you agree? Do you disagree? How you feeling about this?
Yeah, take him at I agree with Mike. I agree with you. I think Zeke's a pretty good value this season, and I think the question between their backfield, it's essentially like, I like passing efficiency a lot because it's a little stickier when it comes to running backs, because rushing efficiency really isn't, and also doesn't really matter. Najee Harris is one of the most inefficient running backs in the history of somebody that had 300 carries. He's the only running back in the last decade that has finished with a negative rushing yard over expected and having over 300 carries. Efficiency doesn't matter if you're getting the touches, and Zeke gets the touches, man. Like, I think you nailed a storyline that was kind of even under the radar for me, is that they knew Zeke had a torn PCL. They knew it couldn't get any worse. They knew he could play through it, and they still decided to give him a 3-down workload and not reduce essentially any of his touches.
Dang.
So, like, that is something that I kind of honestly overlooked a little bit. And yeah, I mean, to concede to you, yeah, the True Value Olympic series, we talked about like essentially all of the exclusive stats and graded guys out like where they ranked 1 through 5. And Pollard was top 5 in almost everything. He's incredibly efficient, but didn't get the volume. So like, it really just comes down to like, what do you want? You want volume or efficiency? Volume leads to RB1 finishes and RB1 points per game, and efficiency leads to a buy low in dynasty that you hope he gets a lead role elsewhere. Like, that's really what we're talking about here. It's Zeke's backfield. He is getting all of the money, and I think Jerry Jones is, as the businessman that he is, like, I don't like to do narrative-based analysis, but the businessman that he is knows he's got all of that money invested in that horse, and he's going to drive that horse into the ground until it can't compete at the Derby anymore.
Big facts. Yeah, I think you're right about that. But what about Tony Pollard? I think Tony Pollard right now is the best handcuff in the game.
He's the best handcuff in football.
Right. With some upside, some weekly upside. I think that there's a world where Tony Pollard is an RB3 and Zeke's an RB1 at the same time. Is it ideal? You're probably paying a little more for Tony Pollard at the moment. So I don't know if I'm going to have Tony Pollard on my team. But if you have Zeke, probably a good idea to handcuff him with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a philosophy like, you do your own handcuffs. You want to roster somebody else's handcuffs. But that's a handcuff that I'm very willing to roster, and I would suggest you were a Zeke manager, whether it be redraft NPR, that you go and get Tony Pollard as well. Top. He was first overall in scrimmage yards over expected for anybody that had over 130 touches. So, like, even in Deebo Samuel's crazy scrimmage yards over expected year, like, Tony Pollard was still better because he's just lightning in a bottle with every touch. So his ceiling is big play explosivity, big 100-yard games. We saw a couple last season. He did finish as an RB3 flex level, which I would, 11 points per game. So, like, yeah, Pollard's somebody that you should think about rostering, even if you don't have Zeke and are just looking for a flex level running back. And then if Zeke were to go down, there would be no question who would now take 25 carries a game.
He'd automatically.
Here's my thing with Pollard, though.
Yeah.
Pollard, that motherfucker is expensive.
Yeah, he's expensive.
He's being drafted like he's going to be an RB2 or a flex spot every week. And that's probably not a good move, in my opinion. He might be the best handcuff in the game, but wait a few rounds and we'll get Alexander Mattison, the second best handcuff in the game. Like, I'm not spending premium capital on Tony Pollard. When was the last time you heard rumors that a running back was going to start playing this slot? And they actually did.
Nah, it's been a while.
Enough of this talk with the backup running backs playing slot every training camp, because they put this guy out there on July 23rd, said, hey, go run her out, Tony. Said, okay, coach. And now all of a sudden he's a slot receiver. Get the fuck out of here. Like, Cordero Patterson became a running back before a running back became Cordero Patterson as a fucking slot receiver. So I'm just not buying that. I think, and I know that Michael agrees with me, so it helps me. It helps me with my thought process. I'm not drafting Tony Pollard at his ADP.
I know my twin agrees with me.
Listen, Michael is the best fantasy football player I know. So if he agrees with me, I feel better about that position.
Let's go to the wide receivers. Talking about feeling good about a position. I think CeeDee Lamb has wide receiver 1 overall potential. I think I have no problem paying the price that he's going at ADP, second round ADP right now. Look, it's very simple. Amari Cooper's not there anymore, and neither is James Washington. So you've got CeeDee Lamb, you've got a hurt Michael Gallup, and you've got a rookie in Jalen Tolbert, and you've got an unproven player in James Washington, and you got a guy in Dak who's going to target him. Give me all the CeeDee Lamb. I want all of it. Like, I want CeeDee Lamb in every single one of my leagues. I don't want anyone else except CeeDee Lamb. Especially in startups. I traded Jason a big haul for to get his turn to draft
a huge haul
to draft the stack of Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. But I should tell you this: it is a 6-point per touchdown super flex league, and I already have Pat Mahomes, so I'm feeling really good about where I'm at right now. We're only in the second round of an unlimited time draft, which is absolutely
and he doesn't have another pick until the
murdering
4th.
Me. Yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready for that.
Matt loves,
and then doesn't have a 6th,
but I
doesn't have a first.
But I have
at all in any year.
But I have 3 players on my team already. So what do I need to pick until the 4th round anyway? I already have 3 players on my team. I'm gonna have the same amount of players on my team as everyone after the 4th round. With that being said, let's not talk about this draft. Let's talk about the wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb, the rest of these guys. I think Jalen Tolbert's one of those guys where if he gets this shot to start opposite Lamb and he produces, he won't give that up. I don't think that the contract that they gave Michael Gallup is going to affect that if Jalen Tolbert steps up. Now he's a 3rd round rookie. He doesn't have the draft capital that says he's going to be a really solid player from day one. But I know I love
a production
CD.
profile that says it.
Okay, so talk to me, Matt. How do you feel about it?
I mean, I love CD too, man. And all jokes aside, to your dynasty trade, there is a bit of negativity that I think I need to present to the people. It's something that we've brought up on previous episodes, and since he's not here today, I'll give a huge shout out to Casanova because, as you know, Jason said, Michael's the best fantasy. Cass is the best data analyst that I know by far. So, in Cass's studies, he's discovered that around game 40 of a wide receiver's career, or of any player's career rather, their career target share becomes sticky. So essentially, after 40 games played, if those games are played consecutively, you can expect that wide receiver's career target share to be his target share for the next 100 games of his career as well. And CeeDee Lamb right now is sitting at a 20.4% target share for his career, which is just not where we want to be. So that is the negativity, and that is where a lot of pushback from both communities, dynasty and redraft, comes, is that CD hasn't necessarily earned a supreme alpha level of target share in his first 2 seasons. I absolutely think that CeeDee Lamb is a product of the system that he was in and a slow rolling of his ability more so than a product of his talent. I do think that he has wide receiver 1 upside. I don't think wide receiver 1 overall in 2022, but I certainly think he's got top 10 upside. Something that I brought up on multiple episodes is how sticky yards per route run is from year to year. He was top 12 in yards per route run, and that translates really, really well to fantasy points per opportunity, fantasy points per game. So you
Matt,
can expect. Yep.
Can I build just on that stat? I think it's important to note that those stats come from the slot too. This is a guy who played over 80% of his snaps out of the slot in his first 2 seasons. So now you're talking about Amari Cooper vacating. You assume that CeeDee Lamb is going to assume the position of outside wide receiver and move around. Still play out of the slot, don't get me wrong, but move around way more, be on the outside, right? You have to assume that that's going to happen. So with that assumption comes, okay, so now he's alpha wide receiver. He's in a brand new role. So I think that while I love Cass and the stats usually back up that, it does. The stats, there's also like, even in baseball analytics, I say like,
there's outliers, man.
There's outliers, right? And when it comes to what can make an outlier, I think one of the things that can make an outlier is a brand new role. So I think that's how I'm thinking with CeeDee Lamb in terms of, and those I have to yards per catch was that high from the slot. That's heavy, bro. I don't know if you guys know that's heavy. That's not what slot receivers do. And he did it.
He's very much in a new opportunity and an increased role. And we don't believe in vacated targets here. We kind of believe in a trickle down effect. But when even a trickle down effect would then lead to CeeDee Lamb 120 targets last season becoming 140.
That's 150.
Even a trickle down effect.
He only needs 20 more to be a fucking.
So it's not 25%. Vacated targets are wrongly assumed when they are attached to a receiver that has never had any role or a established role or a consistent role. And then you're going, a good example would be like Alan Lazard. And then you're going, okay, well, 30% of the team's targets just left. So he must regress towards that 30%. And that's incorrect. But Cooper and Lamb were incredibly similar in target share themselves, with a slight edge to Lamb per game in their splits. So when that role is removed, there's a trickle down effect. And now that Lamb has already had on the precipice of 25% career target share, that trickle down effect really could bump him to that alpha level. And I think that's where people are attaching the vacated role of Amari Cooper falsely to that vacated target perception. Is Lamb doesn't need necessarily Amari Cooper's 121 targets. He needs 25 of them.
Facts. Big facts.
And so I really do. And I just wanted to let the viewers know that there is some pushback and there is some risk involved to CeeDee Lamb. And you are drafting him as a top 10 wide receiver. You best be ready to. He is expensive. But if there was a player that you had to bet on for that to pay off, I think it's a pretty good bet.
I couldn't agree more. How about the rest of these wide receivers?
I love Jalen Tolbert, man.
Yeah.
Everybody that's ever listened to me talk, I love Jalen Tolbert.
So out of South Alabama, small school. Tell us about him.
Small school. He's the most productive wide receiver in the history of the conference because the conference has only been alive for as long as he's been there. It's only a 3-year-old program. And Jalen Tolbert is an analytical dream. He just pops everywhere. So I won't run down the list, but it's in the 90th percentile, like across the board. But yeah, because he was earning 130 of a team's total 220 pass attempts. So Jalen Tolbert's also somebody that the Cowboys have a system, and it's very similar to the Steelers system, and they don't love paying wide receivers.
Yeah.
They never really have. They didn't want to pay Michael Irvin even all the way dating back then. So they know how to draft and develop very productive wide receivers. I think Jalen Tolbert's ceiling is already where Michael Gallup was at his ceiling. And I think that would improve throughout the year. And you said it, which would have already been my punchline to the whole. I think Jalen Tolbert's a good value in redraft and dynasty, is that he's going to take the number 2 role. And I don't care if Michael Gallup's healthy. He's going to be productive enough that by the time Gallup comes back, it won't matter, because the Cowboys are going to look at it and be like, well, he's costing us way less money for the next 5 years, and I think he's better. Like that's just the way that it's business, man. And Jalen Tolbert is just as good as Michael Gallup is.
All right, Jason, let's get into these tight ends. Dalton Schultz. I feel like Dalton Schultz is one of the more slept on players in the entire NFL. Had a little bit of a breakout last year, and still kind of being disrespected. Last year, 6th in targets, 3rd in receptions among tight ends, 6th in receiving yards. He had a bunch of touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, which was 5th among tight ends, but was still 8th in points per opportunity, excluding tight ends. So I would rather take a chance on Dalton Schultz. Like, he's my wide receiver 5. Like, after the big 3, and you can add Kyle Pitts, even though I'm not huge on Kyle Pitts this year, Dalton Schultz is that next level. I'm taking him over all the other guys, the Dallas Goederts, the Zach Ertzes, all these type of dudes. I prefer Dalton Schultz. He's the only tight end where I would kind of take a chance in what I talked about in the last episode, the tight end dead zone. Those places where now everyone has a starter. Like, you'll see this a lot in the home leagues because they don't think in terms of fantasy, like they don't think like we do in terms of fantasy. So you'll see, okay, I have 2 running backs, I have 3 wide receivers, I have a quarterback. Time to draft a tight end. So that section 7 through 9 tends to be some tight ends that don't really pan out. But I think Schultz is a great pick in that area. Jason, how are we feeling about Dalton Schultz? Jason, you're on mute, sir. Don't worry, I unmuted you.
There it is. It's the first time that happened to me. It happens, I was wondering why you guys weren't listening to me either earlier. I was trying to tell you guys that Michael also loves Jalen Tolbert, and I guess I'm just being ignored. Whatever.
I'm glad that Michael loves Jalen Tolbert too, man.
Michael has a lot of underdog.
When Mike and I agree on things, they're usually good.
Yeah, yes. If you guys agree on something, I'm following it. So we have Jalen Tolbert on the outside, who we like. CeeDee Lamb, we like. This was the top scoring offense in the league. They need to throw the ball to someone. And Dalton Schultz was money last year. Talk about improvement. This guy went from 63, 615, and 4, which is a pretty solid season for a tight end. It's basically Logan Thomas's year, the year he broke out, to 78, 808, and 8. And this guy has been this guy.
Both of them.
2 of them. But talk about taking elite, man. Like, Dalton Schultz was great last year. And I already went on a whole shut the fuck up about Tony Pollard in the slot thing. So I'm not worried about Tony Pollard going in the slot and taking work from Dalton Schultz. So, yeah, Dalton Schultz is going to be an active part of that offense. And each of the last 2 years, Dalton Schultz has had 14 red zone targets. I expect that number to go up. Amari Cooper's not there anymore. Give me a 18 to 25 looks in the red zone this year. Almost 80, like 8,910 is like a legit possibility for Dalton Schultz.
8,900 yards?
Yes, 8,900 yards. Yeah. So, and he's being drafted behind a lot of guys that Tim noted earlier. So I think Dalton Schultz is a great option. If you want a tight end you could count on, but don't want to pay up for the big guys, give me Dalton Schultz.
I think that's one of the reasons why
Yeah, I
I
think that's-
like that's one of the reasons why I like Dalton Schultz, and one of the reasons why I like why is my CeeDee Lamb more. I think it's because Amari Cooper leaves, and one thing that Amari Cooper, he had 19 red zone opportunities, and we're not talking about vacated targets or whatever, but that's 14th in the league. That's the number one red zone target on the team. He had way more opportunities than CeeDee Lamb, and now CeeDee Lamb gets to, he's a big guy. He gets to compete for jump balls in the end zone. Dalton Schultz gets those end zone opportunities. So I feel like I know, like Matt said, we don't believe in vacated targets, but at the same time, I'm talking about the opportunity is going to increase in the red zone because they're going to have to throw to someone, and these two guys have prowess. So I believe that Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb are both going to see some upside for sure. All right, let's get into it. It is the bold prediction time. Jason, let's start with you today. What is your bold prediction for the Cowboys? And Jared.
Dalton Schultz is a top 2 tight end.
Woo, 2. Okay, join in the big behind 2.
That's why I kept it at 2. I don't know who 1 is going to be. I'm a little weary of Travis Kelce at cost this year.
I think it's Kelce. I really do.
George Kittle always has injury concerns, and I'm a little bit weary of Darren Waller with Devontae Adams in town. So I'm saying Dalton Schultz will be top 2.
So Mark Andrews number 1?
No, I'm just listing guys that could finish ahead of him. Mark Andrews too. I just blanked on him just now. Yeah. I'm just going with 2. Just leave me alone, Tim. Top 2. I'm going to say 3. It's a bold prediction show.
All right, Matt, where you at?
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave the CD take to you. I think Dak Prescott's top 3 quarterback.
From your mouth to God's ears, my friend. And
I mean, if that would obviously mean that CeeDee Lamb's probably the wide receiver 1 overall.
And CeeDee Lamb finishes wide receiver 1 overall is my hot take. Not too spicy, baby, because I could believe it could really happen, man. I'm all over CeeDee Lamb this year. I think this is his breakout year. I was all over him last year, but it didn't work out.
All our hot takes align. If Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb are both top 2 options at their position, then Dak Prescott's going to be top 3 at his position.
That is very true. So it looks like we basically
number 1 scoring offense again, I guess.
It looks like we basically just predicted the future and just no need to even just don't even worry about the season. This is what's going to happen. If you want to know more predictions about the future, come see us on Twitter. All right, that's a good place to come see us. Matt, where could they find you?
Find me at Psych Ward FF.
Jason, where can they find you? There you go.
At
Jason,
BRoto FF Jason.
At BRoto FF Jason. You could find me at BRoto FF Tim as I figure out how to put these things. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Still says bold prediction, man.
Yeah, I know. Hold on, it's coming.
He's
it's
working
coming.
on it.
It's coming. By the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, that's because you don't see YouTube.com right now. YouTube.com/BrotoFantasy for YouTube. Again, we're not really a video centric podcast. We do like to put these on there, but we're not really. But if you want to see us on video, if you like seeing our face, and if you think this is a medium that you enjoy, keep clicking the play button, and we'll keep providing you with the videos. We promise that. With that being said, at BRoto Fantasy, at BRoto FF Mike, at BRoto FF Casanova, at FFI BRoto for the app, and yeah, that's it. That's the end of the NFCs. Jason, man, I miss podcasting with you, bro. You bring
so much fun.
You bring a je ne sais quoi to the scene, bro.
This was a lot of fun, man. For how much I've just been studying the last few months, to just sit here and joke about menisci was fantastic.
I will tell you this, bro. The podcast all the podcasts that you're not on all miss anger. And yeah, so you bring the anger.
Someone to yell,
but it's hilarious anger.
Fucking
so I'm
Tony
with it.
Pollard.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. In all of the heat waves, we've managed not to curse so far. But then Jason came on. So much for that streak. Peace out, guys. See you tomorrow. Later.